Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would talk about winter in Denmark and Northern Europe. I've seen and I've had a lot of questions from people asking about first winter here, what should I wear, what should I get, what should I do? Now up till probably a couple of days ago it's been relatively mild here, although it has been feeling quite chilly. But today I noticed it was certainly much colder. Although the thermometer's reading around 5 degrees, it's certainly real feel out there is closer to freezing. So today I'm going to run through, I wrote about this on my blog, so I'll link down below where you can read that as well, but I thought I would do more of a visual overview of the things that I think are worth getting hold of for your first winter here. And it's not too late, a lot of these things are still in the shops. Some years ago things would just sort of sell out and that would be it. But now they're actually in the shops for a little longer, so you have the opportunity to get them. So first of all, I'm going to talk about clothing. Moving to Copenhagen, certainly for myself and a lot of people I know, meant that we were outside a lot more. We were much more in contact with the weather that was going on and the seasons. When I lived in Hampshire in England, I would get out of my house, get into my car, put the heating on, drive to my office, get out of my car into the warm office, and the only time I would really be out in the elements would be if I popped out to get a sandwich at lunchtime. But here, public transport, cycling, you know, you're out a lot more if you're not a car owner. So you start to actually have to think about what you're wearing and what your wardrobe is. So first of all, I will go through what I would put sort of on my head. Now, I get very cold ears, not everybody does, but a decent hat, this one goes down to some kind of sub-zero temperatures. That goes down to some sub-zero temperatures, so I only really get this one out when it's super cold. But other than that, I'm using fairly thick woolly hats that pull down over my ears to keep me nice and warm. Last year I lost a lot of hats. This year I'm being much more careful and haven't lost any yet. I tend to put them on my lap. Let this be a warning. Put them on your lap when you're on the metro or something and you stand up in a hurry to get off at the next stop, you've lost your hat. So always pop it in your bag. So hats are a good start. If you're not a hat kind of person, you can get these sort of woolly bands that go around so they just cover your ears, because it tends to be, I know we lose a lot of heat at the top of our heads, it's our ears that we tend to feel actually cold ourselves from in the sort of short term when you're outside before you start to be out there for too long. So another option, of course, and they're very popular with little girls, but I love them too, are earmuffs. They're going to cover your ears, they're going to keep you nice and warm, and you can find them in a lot of different shops. Admittedly, a lot of them are for kids, but you know, if your head's not too big, you're okay. And one thing I do sometimes do in the winter, if it's super cold, is I'll wear my hat and then I'll stick them over the top as well. Might get a few funny looks, but it does keep me nice and warm. So there's some earmuffs and hats, or the band, something. You can also get these little kind of just round ear-shaped things that kind of plug onto your ears that can keep you nice and warm. And I know a lot of people, listening to AirPods or got headphones on. You can work something out that works with keeping you warm and being able to listen to what you like to listen to. Next up are gloves. Now, gloves are great, they have fingers in them, you can do more things, but actually, as we were probably told when we were in primary school, mittens will keep your hands a lot warmer. Now the downside is obviously you can't do as much because you've got big paws on, so you have to pull them off to do things. So it's up to you what you prefer, but personally I find that mittens are really good for me, especially if you're cycling as well. So two types of mittens that I own. I have these ones here, which are Icelandic wool mittens. I think they also do gloves, and they do some with like the, like that kind of flap over, so you've got fingerless gloves underneath. They're really good if you want to be doing more things. But I find these are perfect. I got mine, well actually these ones were a replacement Christmas gift last year. They sell them in the Christmas market in Tivoli, and I think probably also down in Newhound, but they're certainly in Tivoli, and I've seen them and they do hats, they do great stuff there. These contain natural, because they're a very thick wool, they contain a little bit of natural fat in them, lanolin, which you can feel a little bit if you squeeze them. I mean, they don't feel greasy or anything like that. But one of the great things about them is that they have natural waterproofing on them. Now, my previous pair before these, I wore to the Freelands Museum on a pretty muddy day in the winter, and I dropped my glove on the floor in some mud. It was covered in mud, it was disgusting, so I just shoved it in my bag. And then later on when it had dried off, I just literally just brushed it off and there was no trace of it left on the glove. So they recommend that you don't wash these too frequently. You can wash them, but every time you're washing them, you're losing some of that natural oils that are in the gloves. So they're brilliant. I love those. And then the other ones, for when it gets snowy or very wet, I mean, that's one of the things here. We haven't had a lot of snow. We have had snowfall over the last few years, but not a lot of it or for a long time. But when it does come and you're cycling or you're walking, you need something that's going to keep your hands properly dry. I mean, these have got some kind of water resistance, but not a lot. Something that's going to keep you properly dry and properly warm. So something like this, again, you can get them as gloves. You don't have to have them as mittens. And you'll find these in most decent ones of these in most sports shops. Anywhere in Denmark, you'll be able to get hold of these. They're kind of like ski gloves, I guess, but they're really, really practical, and they've got fleece inside, windproof, waterproof on the outside. So they're a perfect thing to get as well. Coats. I'm not going to go and put my coat on, but I have a coat from the North Face. It's a long coat. It has a zip-in inside, which is like a feather padded one, and then the waterproof outside. I've been wearing this coat for, I think this is the 4th winter. If I'm honest, I'm a little bit bored of the colour. I wish it could just change colour occasionally, but it still does exactly what it needs to do. It's still waterproof, still windproof, and still keeps me toasty warm. So they're expensive, but like I say, going into the 4th winter with this, very little wear and tear on it. It's going to see me through a good number of more winters. So it's quite an investment. You could go around to some of the sort of the fashion shops and look at, padded coats that they sell in there, but they're not going to be the quality, and they're not going to last as long. So you could end up spending the same amount of money over the period of time by buying multiple coats that aren't much good or don't last than really investing in it. So that would be some advice. If you're not going to be growing or changing size, invest in that. The other thing, although they're not the most appealing things to wear all the time, are some waterproof trousers. They can just be windproof and waterproof. They don't need to be padded, but they're worth putting on if it's a particularly rainy, cold day. Just pull them over your jeans, take them off when you get to work, or your trousers or whatever. Sometimes I've even had a skirt on, sort of, pulled them up and tucked the skirt in, and then when I get to where I'm going, just take them off. So they're worth looking at. You can get quite inexpensive ones of those in the supermarkets, but also sports shops, of course, will sell those sorts of things. I've also noticed it's been a bit of a fashion for sort of all-over padded suits for ladies that zip through. I don't know how warm these are. I don't know how practical they are if you're going in and out of places. But I certainly see a lot of women wearing them, and you can buy them in the fashion shops if you don't want to get like a proper ski suit one. The slightly lighter padded ones, they're in places like Vera Moda, Pieces, those sorts of shops sell them. So if you want to look for those, you can. Now down to feet. Obviously thick socks really help you out if you get cold feet or chilblains or something, but it's worth getting some decent waterproof boots. Now, if I'm honest, thinking back to primary school, 1980s England, people wore Wellington boots out in the snow. We all did it, but they're not going to keep your feet warm for long, and actually you're going to get pretty cold in them. So you want to look for when the weather does get cold, wet, snowy, whatever. You want to look for some decent waterproof boots. Now, I have been a fan of the brand Sorrel since 11 years ago when we first moved here, and I got my first pair of boots from them, from a sports shop in Hampshire. And I wore them every single winter until last winter when they sprung a leak. And really, there was nothing I can do. And I think after that amount of time, I'm happy to sort of, let go of them. But I got a new pair. Now, I have size 39 feet, size 5 in England. I don't know what it is in the US. So I don't have exceptionally large women's feet. So this time, I was able to get a replacement pair of Sorrel boots, but from the youth range. And they actually were on special offer as well at the time. So I was very, very happy with these. Although I would say, even if you pay full price, they're worth getting. And you can find them in the shops, but you can also find them in tons of places online. Amazon, Zalando, wherever if you do online shopping and you don't want to go out to the shops, they're the places you'll find them, and you'll get a bigger selection. But this is the pair that I have. As you can see, the Wellington bit goes all the way around the front and all the way around the side, which means that unless you're in exceptionally deep snow, or a deep, deep puddle, that's not going to go anywhere over here. And this part's waterproof as well. Now, you can get them with laces. These have got like this kind of pull through toggle. They're really padded inside. Now, this pair, unlike my first pair, don't have sort of fleece all the way, like woolly furriness all the way through. They just have like a fleecy layer, but they've got this wool layer around the top. These are fantastic. They keep your feet so warm, so dry. And I expect that, as I say, I mean, I barely wore these. I got them towards the end of the winter last year in sales. I can see these lasting me for quite a few years more, and you can get them in adult sizes. They do them in kids size. I'm going to move on to kids clothes in a second. They do them in kids sizes, but I'm not sure that they give enough support in foot. If you think about how much kids are running about and one thing or another, but they do them, so you could have them for the whole family if you wanted to. So that's what I would say for clothing. Obviously, layers are a great idea because you can take them off. I'm a big fan of, I guess we would call them long johns, you know, like sort of a light fabric layer underneath your jeans. I bought some that were made out of bamboo, and I think you can still get them made out of bamboo. They're so lightweight that they don't feel bulky underneath your trousers, but they give you such a good extra level of warmth, because obviously you've got the extra layer of insulation, but you've also got an extra layer underneath you. And I remember a tip that I was told when I first moved here, I've never done it myself, is that if you want to wear a skirt and you want to wear tights, put 2 pairs of tights on. And then you've got 2 layers, so that keeps you nice and warm. So I think that's about it for adults. All those things I've talked about are equally relevant for men and for women. You just obviously need different sizes and different styles. Right, but kids' clothes, this is where we really kind of get into it, and I'm going to get my my piece of paper that's got the kids' clothes stuff written on it. Now, my son's a bit old now for a lot of this stuff, so I don't have it to kind of wave around for you. But if we're going from outside in for kids, again, they're going to need hats. The younger children, particularly if they're in daycare, like before they go to primary school, it's very much recommended that they have these sort of balaclava ones. They're called elephant hats here. So you pull them over, so there's nothing that's going to, go flying off or get lost. And it also gives them that extra warmth around their neck. As they get older, they may prefer like a pull-on hat, earmuffs, all the kind of things I've talked about for adults. And also, again, this is something for adults perhaps, you can get these sort of, we used to call them snoods in the 1980s, you just pull them over your head and they're like a scarf thing. My son has one of those. It's great because there's no risk that someone's going to grab his scarf in a game and hurt him or whatever, or that it's going to get caught anywhere. It's around his neck and it's really snug and it keeps him nice and warm. So that's what I would say, sort of the head side of things. Again, gloves, same as goes for adults. Mittens are going to keep their hands warmer, but padded gloves, waterproof gloves are fantastic because, as we know, children get their hands in things a lot more than we do. So woolly gloves for them aren't really going to work necessarily. So you want something waterproof. When children are quite small and they're in the habit of dropping their gloves wherever, you can get these little clips that one clips onto the glove and one clips onto their sleeve, so that if the glove is taken off, they don't lose it. And I know for sure that you can get them in a shop called Name It here, just the glove clips. And sometimes they have them in places like Tiger and Soster and Graham, but not always. But definitely in the winter, you can get hold of those in Name It. So that's good for their hands. A coat and padded trousers, the two together, even as they're getting a little bit older, still in primary school age, this is really worth doing because when it gets cold, they're going to get cold legs. But also, as I say, at schools here, they're out playing in whatever weather, basically. So they need that padded layer to keep them warm. Or when they're a little bit younger and going into certain ages, but as they get older, they want the two-piece or just a big coat. A fluverdrex, like an all-over suit that you zip up like a snowsuit. They're super popular for children. The great thing about them is there's no gap, so they're not going to get any snow or rain or cold down the back there, and it's all in one, and it keeps them really, really warm. And they have like little straps under the feet, so you can keep them down into the boots. So they're perfect. You'll find they sell them in H&M, but they sell them in some of the other shops. And if you check out some of the second-hand shops around town, like Moira Yelp and the Mother's Helper shop, they always have them in there. I mean, maybe as the winter goes on, there's fewer and fewer, but that's somewhere to look, and you can get some really decent brands, still in great condition for a fraction of the price. So that kind of suit for kids is great. Again, same as adults that I talked about, winter boots. Something, the brands I like for my son is Echo, there, and also Superfit, I think, is another brand. Again, you can shop online for these. You can look at Zalando, you can look at different sports shops online, but you can also go into the shop. Obviously, you need to make sure that the size is correct for your child. But something that comes up high up to their ankle, probably with a sort of Velcro closure rather than laces, because if laces get wet, they're quite hard to tie up or untie. So that's quite good. Make sure they're waterproof, they're windproof. They've got, obviously, depending on how you feel about shoes, but sufficient support that you're happy with for your child to be wearing these a lot. They're expensive and they are going to grow out of them in a year, and you're going to have to replace them the next year. But they're going to wear them probably every single day. You can also get other own brand ones in supermarkets, particularly Foodtex. So that's great for kids. Vest and leggings, certainly for younger children, they're happy to wear an extra layer underneath their trousers if it's pretty cold. And warm socks, warm tights, all the obvious things that you would need there. But definitely you don't want cold children over the winter, because it's no fun for them. So that's what I would say for children. If you can find things secondhand, that's great. It does save on the cost of getting some decent brands. So I think that's all for clothes. Now I'm going to move on to health. In the winter here, it's by the end of November, going towards the shortest day, we're probably looking at the sun coming up at around 8:30 in the morning and setting before 3 in the afternoon. So you're not going to see a lot of natural daylight. And added to that, it's been so gloomy here probably for the last 7 days. We've not had any, I don't think, certainly where I live, we have not had any direct sunlight. Yes, it's been daylight, but it's not had that direct sunlight, and that is really important for our bodies to produce vitamin D. Now, we can kind of charge ourselves up over the summer and get ourselves to a healthy level, but the winter is really going to hammer you with that, even if it's not really cold, just the lack of direct sunlight. So the best thing you can do, particularly for children, is to get some vitamin D supplements. Now, for kids, they come in the form of drops that you can put into some juice that they can drink, or some sort of like gummy, chewy vitamins. You can look at multivitamins, but look and make sure they have 100% of the vitamin D you need for that day. So that's important to think about. I use, these are actually Swedish, but I use a multivitamin. So it's a women's multivitamin there. So obviously it's got the vitamins that I need as a woman in this. But it also contains, it's 150% of the recommended daily amount of vitamin D in just one of these effervescent tablets. So just heading out to any nearby pharmacy, you can look at the vitamins there, be very clear what you want. Vitamin D, it's exactly the same in Danish and Swedish as it is in English. So you can just look for those and find the ones that suit you. There's also, they're a little bit more expensive. There's some tablets called immuno tablets. They're for the winter and they build up your immune system. So they have plenty of iron in them. They have plenty of the vitamins that over the winter are probably going to get a little bit depleted. So there's something worth taking, and make sure you take these things regularly, because obviously it needs to build up in your system. So that, I think, is really important. Currently at the moment, at time of recording, which is late November, pharmacies are running the opportunity for you to go in and get a flu jab in the pharmacy. Now, if you're in a group that they consider is like a kind of a high-risk group, so I believe you can find the leaflet, but I believe that is... Now I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop the video just for 2 seconds, and I'm going to go and find my leaflets. Right, now I found the information about who can get a flu vaccine for free. So I'm just going to read it quickly here. If you're over 65 years of age, you have heart or lung problems, you have diabetes type 1 or 2, you have a chronic lung sickness, you're pregnant in your 2nd or 3rd trimester, or you have a chronic sickness which increases your risk factor of getting seriously ill from the flu jab, and you can ask at your pharmacy if you think you fall into one of those. Otherwise, you have to pay for it, and I think it's around 200 krona. But look out in your local apothec; they may have a poster up there, or you can go online to apotec.dk and search for flu vaccinations, and it will show you where nearby you can get your jab done. Now, if you're in the workplace, a lot of workplaces organise for a flu jab to take place actually in your office, and then it would be free. So if you have that opportunity, do take it up, because it's worth it. It'll save you 200 krona. But some years ago, I think probably about five years ago, I caught swine flu whilst on holiday in Florida, and I have never been that sick with a virus, an illness or whatever in my life. I was, fever up to 40 degrees, and I was really, really ill, and I was ill for some weeks after. It took a long time for my body to kind of really fight back against that flu. So since then, I've always had a flu jab. Now, they're not 100%. They have to work on which flu strains they think are going to be the big ones this winter. So sometimes you still may get it if something has just mutated and there's a new flu out there. But generally they're worth having, because they have done quite a bit of research and they know which ones are most likely to come up. So that's the sort of the health side of things for that. Now, talking about skin, winter here can be very, very drying on your skin and your hair. The water is pretty harsh anyway, so you're already fighting against that battle. But it will dry out your skin a lot. So the best thing to do is, if you use a moisturiser, to go for something that's contains a bit more fat, is a little thicker for the winter, just to moisturise your face, and also something decent for your lips, just to keep your lips moisturised so they don't get really chapped. You can go in the pharmacy and you can ask for something called a fat cream. They will show you the varieties that they have in there, and they're very, very thick, as the name suggests. They've got a lot of fat in them, and they are going to basically put a layer over your skin. Same with hand creams. Look for some decent hand creams in the winter. When I get dry, cold hands, I tend to crack across my knuckles, and they can start to bleed, and it can be very, very, very painful. So looking for something just to keep the moisture going on your hands. There are various different brands, but something that's not just a nice scented, thing that's going to make your hands feel nice at the time, but something that's actually going to give them a barrier and give them some moisture as well. Somewhere on my table amongst all my things, here we go. This is something that I got some free samples of in the pharmacy and then bought my own one. I think you can see it there. It calls itself a repair cream in French, but it's also got it in English. And I was first given this when I had a very bad cold and I had very, very sore skin around my nose. And it basically kind of helps you, it puts a barrier and helps your skin regenerate, I suppose. How true that is, I don't know. But it did work for me, and I put it there. And I also use this if I get the cracks across my knuckles. If I haven't moisturised them enough or it's been really harsh, put this across just before you go to bed, and it's really good. And it's also great for children. If children get chapped skin or their faces are very sore from the wind, if it's windy, then that's something to look at. Like I say, it's not cheap, but you only use a tiny amount, so it's going to last you a while. And talking about children as well, particularly toddlers, babies, if they're in a buggy or in their pram or something like that, or they're running around a lot outside, they'll get, if it's very cold or windy, they'll get chapped skin. So you can look for, again, like a fat cream, but one that's specifically devised for children. The brand I loved, it's a German brand, when my son was little, is Weleda, I think you call it, and they do a winter protection cream for kids, but also equally adults can use it. It's great. And one thing that I was told to be careful of is it puts quite a thick layer over children's cheeks. And then if you go in somewhere, so say you've gone to, the play area at the library or something like that, and you've disrobed them and they're running around, it's very warm in there, that's going to make them feel quite hot if it's still on their face. So they do say just kind of wipe it off with a tissue when you go in, if there's still, quite a thick layer left on the face. But that will look after your face. Also your hair, you may find you need a little bit more moisturising over the winter, but that's obviously kind of a personal thing. But definitely your skin, your face skin and your hand skin, because they're going to be getting, particularly if you're cycling, it's your face that's going to be getting quite a lot of sort of cold wind on it there. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is mental health and well-being over the winter. Now, a lot of people, there's a big bird behind me, can you see? A lot of people get very down in the winter here. It gets dark, it's gloomy. You feel like if you're going into an office and you're getting on the metro and then you're going to your office and on the metro and coming home, you can start to feel like you're leading somewhat of a mole-like existence where you're not really seeing fresh air and you're not seeing daylight. Now, I know I haven't really painted a wonderful picture of fresh air and daylight in the winter, but it is important. It's important for us, to raise our heart rate by walking and things. But when it gets cold, we don't feel like doing that and we start to feel quite miserable at times, and there are ways that you can counteract that. Now I've got all my stuff over here and I've put the thing I want to show you the furthest point away. Let me just grab it. This, and it's a very old-fashioned one because I bought this 11 years ago, is a daylight lamp. Now when it's plugged in, it gives out a very gentle light. Now I would plug mine in and show you it, but it's on its way out and it's malfunctioning a little bit, and it might kind of go too bright or too light. But it has a button here, this side here, which is the light side of it, and that's the sound because it has an alarm normally here. So what you can do with this is you can set it to give you a natural sunrise to wake you up in the morning. Now mine makes a horrible alarm noise as well, so I don't really like the alarm, but you set it for the highest brightness you want it to go to wake you up, and then you put the alarm on, and then it will gradually go from nothing, lighter, just like the sun. And it gives your body a natural wake up. It's got a special kind of lamp in there, so it's simulating you waking up with a natural sunrise outside. And that really, really helps your body's rhythm. It wakes it up properly. It's time to get up. Not, oh my goodness, it's the middle of the night. Why am I getting up now, even though it's 6:30, 7 o'clock? So something like that is great. And also during the day. Now, when, like today, it is so miserable outside, and it was like it last week as well, I'll bring this downstairs and I'll just plug it in, and if I'm sitting here working or reading or doing something, whatever I'm doing, I'll just stick it next to me and I'll put it up almost as high as it will go. So it'll be like a bright, midday sun in the summer. So I'll turn it up and I'll sit with that, and it really does. It gives your body a little bit of a boost when you're missing it from outside. So that's certainly something. Now, this is a Philips one. Philips still seem to be leading the game with these. I've seen some great ones, but they're a lot smaller now, much more compact, not a big beast like this is. So when this one finally dies, and now I'm talking about it, it's probably just going to die tonight. When this one finally no longer works, then I will replace it with a slightly smaller, more modern one. But like I say, I bought this 11 years ago, and I put it away in the summer because I don't need it in the summer, and get it out in the winter. So it's only just on its last legs after 11 years. So I think that's pretty good. The other thing that you can do is you can go to the sauna. Now, swimming pools here have single gender saunas in the changing rooms. So you just have to pay to go into the swimming pool, and you can have a swim, but you can also go in the sauna. And I don't know what it is. I'm sure somebody can tell me, and I haven't Googled it to find out. But there's something about warming up like that in a sauna that can really boost your mood. So I would really recommend, if you can get into a sauna, to do it just maybe once, twice a week, what have you. But really enjoy going there. Now I go to like a spa in a public swimming pool in Øbro. Øbro, Hallen. I'll link down below because I've written about it before, and I think now it's about 115 kroner to get in. Now you can use the swimming baths as well upstairs for that, and they have a whole complex in there. Now quite a few years ago, I was on BBC Scotland talking about winter in Copenhagen, and that no longer exists, which is unfortunate, but I took them to this place where I go, and they talk to people there, and everybody was saying this really helps us in the winter. But what they have there is they have a very large jacuzzi. It's very warm and bubbly and lovely, and it's a quiet area. No kids can go in there. They've got signs saying, please talk in low voices. This is a relaxing, quiet place. They have a couple of saunas in there. In the mixed area, they have like a Turkish steam room, which I find it a little bit too intense. They also have an infrared sauna, which is great because you don't sweat as much, but you warm from inside. And in the changing rooms, they have the normal kind of what you would expect, sort of a Scandinavian kind of sauna situation where you can be naked because you're just with other women if you're a woman and other men if you're a man. But the really big thing that I love about this place, and it's worth looking at if your local swimming pool has one of these sort of spa areas, if they have a daylight room. Now, talking about the daylight room here in this swimming pool place is you lie back on a recliner. It's not terribly comfortable because I don't want you to get too comfortable and stay there all day. And you switch a light switch and you have a huge daylight light above you and a huge daylight light to the side of you. So you lie there and it's like you're lying on the beach. Now you don't get as warm as being on the beach, obviously, but you are getting all of that kind of a simulated daylight, and it really can give you a boost. I often find I fall asleep in there. I find it very relaxing, but it's something that you can do, and it gives you that boost. And you don't have to go every week, maybe once a week or something like that. That's something definitely to consider for sort of your mental health. I was just checking my notes, I didn't have anything else there. And the last thing, which I don't do, and I know a few people that do, is winter swimming. Yeah, that is exactly what it sounds like. You swim in the winter in the sea. So it's winter sea swimming in the sea. Take off all your clothes, you jump in, literally, for minutes, less than minutes perhaps, and come out. And I've never done it. I know somebody, another fellow YouTuber, I'll link down below because she's done quite a few videos about it, Diane in Denmark. She is a winter bather and she loves it. She swears by it. And I've seen people down here at Amastrand, near where I live, they're running along, they're in their running gear, they whip all their running gear off, they dive in the sea, they're in there for like 30 seconds, a minute, they climb back out again, shake themselves off almost like a dog, put their running clothes back on, biggest grin on their faces, and off they go and finish their run. Sounds pretty hardcore, but there's a lot of research that says it boosts your endorphins. It's really, really good for the winter and just to keep you feeling happy. So, maybe consider that. But the advice that I've been told is don't start in the winter. Start in the summer, start swimming in the sea in the summer, and keep going through the autumn to the winter, because it can be a little bit of a shock to the system if you suddenly start winter swimming now in November when the sea temperature is probably near to freezing. Probably not the best time to start it, but there are things that you can do. And of course, we have Hygge here in Denmark. We light our candles. We have our Christmas lights up at the moment. I mean, February, March, they're the tough months, but you've got all that light. You've got Christmas to look forward to. If you're going to stay indoors because it's cold, cuddle up, watch a movie, do something, and just, try and make the most of what you can in the winter. And don't let the cold stop you from going out. Just wrap up, follow all the things I've said today, and you can still enjoy all that winter has to offer in Copenhagen. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have, do remember that it's really nice for me to get some likes down below, and if you're not subscribing to the channel, please do subscribe. That would be fantastic. And if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about life in Copenhagen, please do just either send me a message, you can go onto my website and do it through there, or you can just leave a comment down below. But anything, I'd love to talk more about life here and what goes on. So until next time, bye for now.